And it should be short. I mean, I feel like Black people have been saying this forever. So
saying what?
That everybody knows that this was going to happen. So
what's going
we
to happen?
all we just didn't know to the degree
January
the terrorist
6th.
attack.
Oh, I mean, there have been terrorists, so I like I was.
Which also I would say I was gonna say I also say that I mean like one thing too that I was reading about was just like the notion of linking it as white supremacist violence that has that's linked to historical racism in the country, just because when we're framing it as terrorism, we're like terrorism is specifically never actually used against white people in terms of they never get increased surveillance, they never get increased criminalization, they never get anything like that. So calling even the white supremacist terrorists like still feeds into the idea of it's about policing versus it's about systems that are allowing their power to be expressed in this violent way.
Welcome to the Rona Report.
Yay! Welcome, Happy New Year.
Welcome to the Rona Report. My name is Elizabeth Chijioke. This is interesting because like last recording we had, I was with the guys, but now I'm with the girls. So like I get both, like perspectives and like both genders. I think it's like the battle of the sexes. But I'm really excited to be here. Hey everyone, Happy New Year, Happy January. I'm Elizabeth again.
I'm gonna say, oh my bad, yeah, and I'm Rock.
And I'm Marisa.
And we're so happy to have you. Okay, so guys, I'm really excited about today's topic because I've been laughing like all week. Like I really like sometimes I just lay in bed and I'll just think about like this week and then I'll just start like laughing because it's really hilarious. But before we get into today's topic, let's introduce what this is. If this is your first time watching, this is the Rona Report. We are a contemporary show documenting COVID through the perspective of young people of color, primarily like Black people. And so like we really hope that you enjoy our show and our segment. We get into it and get on each other's nerves and learn from each other, but it's all a good time. And so we hope you enjoy our show today. Before we get into today's topic, we'll be going over a segment of our show called Check-ins. I think I named this, but I don't remember what I named it. I have to go over like my notes. But this is a portion of the show where we check in about 2 or 3 things or 1 or 2 things that we found interesting or anything that we really want to share concerning anything really. It could be about COVID, it could be not COVID related, it could be about your cat, it could be about the Avengers, whatever you guys want to talk about. So who would like to go first?
I mean, one thing that I do know happened this week, which was something I brought up before, but the KC Tenants Union, Kansas City Tenants Union, they again like were able to create a human blockade in front of the housing court and stop over 200 evictions from even being reviewed in court. So just thinking about the fact that being that it was just the first week of January, that means it was just another month in which it was coming up to the first, which meant that people were going to be gunning for their rent, even if there is an eviction moratorium in a lot of states. So definitely just shouting out to the folks who are still maintaining those, I think, like support systems in terms of there is all this constant news of new shit to be handling, and people are still managing to make sure that what was already being handled before is continuing to be handled now.
That's amazing. I didn't hear about that. That's awesome. And when was this?
This was earlier this week. Right. I know that this is actually the second time that they've done it. But for the first time they like chained the doors, but this time they actually created a human chain. So it wasn't even just that, it was the physical inability to enter the space through like the tools, but there were enough people that really came out and said like, we don't want our neighbors not having homes.
Right. I think it's interesting because we're month 10 into COVID, and still so far all we've gotten is $1,800. And the last $600 that's been distributed, that was distributed, wasn't even distributed to all Americans. So some of us, like my sister didn't get $600. She, like, for some reason, I don't know what happened during that process, but she's only gotten $1,200. So imagine for 10 months having to pay your bills, having to do all of these things, and like the systems are still in place to evict you, to kick you out of your home, to take away your car. Like all of these things are like systems and processes are still continuing on, as if people aren't suffering, and if people aren't like in loss, and if people aren't like it's just so weird. So like I'm glad to hear that, there's still people out there still fighting for one another.
Well, new competence should be on the way. We have, what is it, 11 days? Praise God, 11 days. So
yeah.
11 days. My news is, it's just something that literally just brings me joy, and that's that all social media has closed down all Trump's accounts. So Instagram kicked him off, Twitter kicked him off, Facebook kicked him. He has really lost, I believe, his power. And to call the masses unless he does a stupid ass rally or something like that. But that just brought me incredible joy. I thought that he was going to see, they said suspended, but they said indefinitely suspended. So I was like, oh, yes, finally.
I was gonna clap, but then I
so
was
overdue. This is so overdue.
I was gonna say 2015
Like,
is
this
when they
man
should
has
have done
been
all this.
right. I was gonna feel like 10 days before he's out of office isn't like, that doesn't mean
Right.
anything for me. Like Twitter should have been like, why has he been had a platform for the last 4 years? Like, that's not a win to me. I'm sorry, Marissa. I don't mean to rain on your news, but like,
I get it. I get why they didn't ban him, though. I get why they didn't ban him, because he had a world leader status. So while he was talking reckless and crazy, I mean, only this year, I believe, did they even start fact checking him to be
I feel
like,
like,
this
okay,
is
so the fact that they didn't start
non-factual,
fact checking him
like,
until this
go
year is
through the
also a
actual
concern,
results.
because
right.
his lives have just always been as violent, and him being a world leader, he literally can call a press conference at the White House whenever he wants. Literally whenever he wants. And he chooses not to do that and to use Twitter. So I think, if anything, him being a world leader is more of a reason why he doesn't even need social media, because he legitimately could call everyone's attention to him whenever he wanted, just by making sure it was through the systems that were already in place. And like, as far as like a president giving like his voiced opinions or thoughts, ideas to the world, let alone the nation. But he just thought the way that made him feel more confident and seem less stupid to himself was the one that he chose.
And I feel happy about it, because we can finally, in my opinion, turn him off. Like, I would constantly be hearing about him for what the stupid shit that he said on Twitter all of the time. If he's going on to some sort of, tirade on Fox, I don't have to be part of that anymore. I don't have to be part of it anymore. I can finally, after 4 years, I can turn him off, because nobody wants to be constantly hearing about when the looting starts and the shooting starts and threatening people. The good part is that we have that he told on, like I said, he always tells on himself. And this time he got his supporters in trouble with, remember in July of this year, the Black Lives Matter protest, when they were trying to pull the statues down. Do we remember? Do you remember that he made it on his Twitter and signed it into law that if you storm a federal building or vandalize federal property, it's mandatory 10 years at least.
Oh, great.
Yes, and
I just can't pull it up right now.
There's literally just mandatory. The whole bit, though, of like, that came about in July, of course, because it was specifically talking toward criminalizing Black folk in
Right.
that sense. But now
Mhm.
he's not going to stand by it, because the way whiteness works is whiteness
He
doesn't
doesn't have to
create rules
stand
that
by
everyone has to
anything.
apply to.
He's
The
on
thing
his
is, he
way
doesn't stand by
out.
anything, but it doesn't. I mean, okay, so looking at the number of Republicans that said that they were okay and that they actually aligned with the insurrection that happened on Wednesday, it feels just like so much harder to believe that they're
And
not
they
going to
should
continue
lose their position.
to guard their whiteness by maintaining that it doesn't matter what a white person does, because they are always going to be assumed innocent, irregardless of whether or not you have video evidence of them committing crimes, which is exactly why cops who we have on camera murdering Black civilians continue to walk free, let alone continue to be officers.
You
Which is
know,
my
on
concern.
that subject, Rock, when we saw the terrorist attack that happened on Wednesday, I think the defund the police might finally make sense to white people because it happened to other white people. When we saw the police moving the barricades and letting the terrorists in, when we saw that there's a video of a police officer and the terrorists are literally crushing him against the gate, like, oh, like blue lives matter so much to you. Or the police officer who was bludgeoned to death with a fire extinguisher and they're labeled it as a homicide. To know that, and these people who were taking selfies with these domestic terrorists. If there was no argument that white people could see to defund the police, that you need to tear this down and build it back up, I feel that this was it finally, because they don't listen to us. They could care less what we have to say about anything. But when it happens to them, and these police officers who were doing that, they should be fired immediately and they should not receive any of their pension. If you were one of those taking pictures, if you were one of those who moved the barricade and let them run wild in the Capitol.
I mean, I was gonna say.
If I may, I'm so glad that we're talking about this topic, because for those of you watching, we're talking about Trump supporters storming Capitol Hill, the Capitol building.
No, don't call them that though. Don't call them Trump supporters. These were radical terrorists.
Okay.
We can call them white supremacists.
White supremacists, Trump supporters, all of them, the Ku Klux Klan, the police, all of them storming the Capitol building in Washington, D.C. This past week. And as I watched the footage, and I was on Periscope for like 6 hours just watching the whole thing unfold. And it didn't bring me necessarily like any happiness or any anger or any joy. All I, like, as I was watching it, all I thought to myself was nothing's going to happen to these people. By 30 minutes in, when they were like scaling the walls, breaking through the front door, I was just like, the fact that they got to a door means that there's nothing that's going to happen to these people. And so like, I don't, like, all the footage, all the FBI's involvement now, like everyone coming out to say anything, like today's day 3 of it happening, or I don't know how many days
happened
past
on Wednesday.
So 2 days or 3 days past the event, and still like these people were committing crime in real time in front of the police, with the police. No one got shot, no one got arrested, there were no buses lined up.
Someone did get shot.
Okay,
shot.
The white
not enough people got shot.
Right, but she wasn't shot by the police, right? So like all of these people.
No, she was shot by police.
Or she was shot by the police.
Yes, she was warned. Here's the thing. When I heard about that story.
Okay, wait, hold on one second. One person out of the 30,000, out of the 3,000 people who were there, that's one person who was murdered.
Yeah, I understand. If it had been any group of, if it had been a group of other people, there would have been a mass slaughter.
Look, they've already shown that they don't even care about disability activists who have been trying to say, hey, we still would like some health care. They literally peacefully protested last year, and then they were kicked out in droves in a way that was nowhere near the same process that these white supremacists got this past Wednesday. Because again, when I say dragged out, I mean literally people who were also wheelchair bound being dragged out disrespectfully in ways that the white supremacists who were literally carried down the fucking steps with
Right.
hand and like toting each other's
In
hand by
hand.
fucking cops. Like, yeah.
Right. So I'm glad that we got to talk about it, because I think that on some level it just reaffirmed what, like, I think specifically Black people knew about this nation and about,
and now white people see it too.
but I
feel
don't
like
think that it's going to matter to them. I think that white people have always seen it and have always turned the other eye and always made excuses for themselves. And I think that's what's going to continue to happen. And like, I'm sorry to sound like pessimistic, but I think it's been, how many years has this nation been in existence? Like, this isn't the first time that white people have stormed something, like, or done anything with proof of there being it happening. It's just like, okay, well,
because it hasn't happened to them. Or they haven't all been sitting down and been forced to watch it like George Floyd. Unfortunately, this is one of those things where they have to experience it for themselves. This is what we're talking about. This is what we need. They have asked for the resignation of the people that were in charge of security, because there is no way that we spent like trillions of dollars on a defense bill. And
they did that you have to ask for their resignation is what's hilarious.
Yeah, resignation. Nancy Pelosi.
Well, no, but I'm saying the fact that you have to ask for their resignation, they should be fired. Any other job you do it that poorly, you wouldn't have it anymore. Like, that just doesn't make any sense.
I understand. I don't think that they want to fire them. I guess they're going to say like, hey, give us your resignation, or the alternative is we will fire you. And I see that happen a lot politically. Like, they're asking for Ted Cruz to resign. Is his name John Hawley to resign, the one who gave the fist,
which separately I would say, yeah, the fact that they want to go ahead and block off all of Trump's access to social media. Hawley was also just as much inciting violence as anyone else, and yet he still has his social media. So it's like,
he should be removed.
The idea that Trumpism has anything to do with the actual Trump as a figure is ridiculous. These white supremacists are so dedicated to white supremacy, even they're willing to throw America into the fucking trash if they end up on top. They were seen not only carrying Confederate flags and Nazi flags throughout the halls of the Capitol, but they were also seen throwing American flags to the ground in a way that you have never seen an American patriot do before in order to put the Trump flag up. That tells you something about Trump, as in it's not just about being American. They're like, we don't even need that coded language bullshit anymore. We'll tell you right now, we're here for whites and whites only. That's exactly what they said on Wednesday.
Right. They raised the Confederate, and it was they raised the Confederate flag. Let me tell you something. It was so embarrassing to see Black people at that protest. Yes, who were getting arrested. I was like, they hate you too, right? Like, I'm so confused. You must really hate yourself. Like, I don't understand. I just wanted to bring that up real quick. But any of Trump's enablers, like Lindsey Graham, like Ted Cruz, like Hawley, whatever his name is, and there's actually way more enablers that he have had, still have.
I think it's funny that the next day, or was it the night of, that they started renouncing and denouncing their like association with Trump and stuff like that.
And they're like,
sit down.
This has been too far.
Right. But you don't think everything you've done, you don't think questioning a legitimate election process went too far. But
here's my favorite thing. That they started blaming it on Antifa after the fact.
Okay, so let's clear this now. So Antifa, if you're watching, Antifa is not a group. It's an idea. It means anti-fascism. And like, I am tired of people coming up and making these made-believe groups up just in order to support their cause. Like, I have no words. The people, I get really angry or like really irritated that people in their stupidity continue to perpetuate lies and just like made up believe groups in order, like, you're creating like this made up like what's it called when someone like an antagonist, like an antagonist group to like you, like, that doesn't exist, right? So like, if I'm a Trump supporter and I'm a white supremacist, my verse is an Antifa group that doesn't exist. Like, it doesn't make any sense. Like,
doesn't it seem like the people that are actually believing this I've gotten to the point where if you're watching Fox News and you believe this, I pity you, because how could your education be so incredibly low that you can
because
see it? You can
governors
see
and
it
mayors
on
are always cutting
camera.
the budgets.
You can see it on camera and still say, "Oh, Antifa decided to dress up as Trump supporters."
Right.
Like, I'm just kind of like, you can see it play as they're arresting these people. They're showing their pictures. All of them are next to Trump on TV or next to the American flag, loaded with guns. And you can't make any decision for yourself. You can't look at the evidence that's in front of you and say, "Oh, I think they're lying to me." Like, there was a woman on C-SPAN, and she called in to C-SPAN and was crying. Now, I gave Trump supporters way too much credit. I did. I always thought that they knew what was going on, because no one could be that dumb, or nobody could be that simple. And this woman was hysterically crying, and she asked C-SPAN, "Did my president lie to me today?" And the fact that you didn't know that he had been lying to you, not to just today, this whole goddamn time. And you never came to that realization until somebody was dead on your side, until somebody died on your side. That's when you cared. Because she was talking about the woman that died, and he needs to tell my family, and he needs to tell her family too.
I can't comprehend it because
no, but that's so much of it is because it is the thing is that it is about them not, it's about them, the intention is that they don't understand, that they don't know, because it's easier to manipulate sheep than it is to manipulate active free thinkers. So that's exactly why you have all these white people who don't even recognize that what happened on Wednesday wasn't some white people separate from and different to and maybe just a little bit less educated than them. The white people on Wednesday were the foot soldiers for every other white person in this country. It has nothing to do with whether or not you were there, whether or not you wanted to be there. It has nothing to do with whether or not you specifically
there were attorneys.
If you were a white person in this country, they were on the battlegrounds of white supremacy, fighting for it for you.
Right.
And that's something that they can't be they can't comprehend that accountability.
Right. Can I say that?
People were announcing themselves.
Right. There were attorneys.
I live here. This is my address. I got I have no mask on. Here's my whole face.
Can we talk about the super spreader aspect of this too?
Right.
Like, none of them were wearing masks. None of them were wearing masks. And a lot of them came from, like you said, from different places. They weren't coming from, there wasn't one group of people who came with PPE to one place safely. It was a lot of people coming from all over the country, actively not wearing masks.
Right.
And I will say, you know what's scary though? The protests, the counter protests that were happening in New York after that, like the anti-fascist protest, was the first time I've ever seen so many cops wearing masks. And that's the scariest shit, because that's when I'm like, oh, these cops are literally ready to violate. That's what they came here for. When I see cops wearing masks, I don't think they give a fuck about COVID or PPE, because every time I've ever interacted with them otherwise, they've made a point to say, God damn, are you bringing up the mask again? I don't give a fuck. I don't care. COVID isn't even real. Has literally been their response. So the fact that all of them wanted to wear masks that day, I'm kind of like, yeah, y'all are doing that for your identity protection. That has nothing to do with you actually give a fuck about people in COVID.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But I feel like it was just, I think what did it for people was also like the woman dying, that I know that they tried to start a hashtag, say her name.
Can I cut you off, please? Can I cut you off, Marisa? Because what did you think was going to happen? If you wanted to have, not you, but what did they think was going to happen? Right. Because there was a lady being shown saying like, oh, we're storming the Capitol, it's a revolution. When there's a revolution, you're dying. Like you're taking up a cost to the death of you. Like you're willing to die behind that idea. So the fact that people are like, oh, this woman died, and I saw that like they had once again, the way that media reframes and frames white lives versus Black lives. So she was no longer like a white terrorist, a white supremacist. She was a veteran. So like this is someone. she's a, she's an army. Yeah, she's an army veteran. So or she was an
she
army.
knew better. Keep
Right.
that in mind.
But this
she
is
knew
someone
better.
who has the training and the knowledge and has some sort. I don't know where she, you know, I don't know where she served or whatever. But what I'm trying to say is that
didn't her story sort of remind you of when you hear these wackadoodle stories of like people like in Germany today, a woman jumped into a polar bear tank. And it's just like, girl, why would you do that? Like, isn't that the dumbest shit you ever heard? And then you're in the polar bear tank, you see the polar bear coming at you and you're swimming towards the polar bear and it attacks you.
Right.
And everybody's like, what the fuck did you think was gonna happen?
But
yes, you got shot. You got shot. He told you to stop. This person had a
picture. The fact that they're trying to martyr someone who was doing something wrong. So let's make this clear. Storming the Capitol building is wrong.
Breaking and entering is wrong.
You weren't doing anything patriotic. You weren't doing anything heroic. What you were fighting for, or what you believed yourself to be fighting against, was a legitimate process. So everything that you did in consequence of that was on your own head. So breaking and entering into a national building, you don't have the right to do that. That is not if you were to go to a park and start to break the water tanks at the park, like you will be arrested. Like you don't have none of them had the right to be there to break into. They don't own that building. They don't own that land.
I mean, they think they do.
Yeah, right. They absolutely think they do 100%. They kept saying, our house.
I mean, no, they think that they own it, but it's also like the fact of the matter is, personally, I don't care about like storming the Capitol building being wrong or right. Like, one thing I will say is I do appreciate the younger generation, because a lot of them have been saying boo hoo to the fucking Congress and Senate. Did you have to hide in the place where you usually go daily and think that did you feel unsafe for the first time because of guns? Yeah, that's what I felt like every year going to fucking school, because school is not terrifying because y'all won't pass gun legislation, like proper gun legislation. So like that's one thing that I'm kind of like, yeah, I personally like, and I say that because if Black people storm the Capitol, I would be 100% about it and be like, y'all are definitely like, yes, burn that bitch down. Like y'all need to be doing it. And I'm saying, and that's and my thing is, Marisa, you can have a different opinion about that, and that's fine. But my thing is, I don't give a fuck about the Capitol. I don't give a fuck about this government. I will say though that my thing is the audacity of those white people to storm that building and expect different behavior than what the cops have been giving to Black Lives Matter protesters since last June. That's what's disgusting me, is because it's not about whether or not it was right or wrong for her to be doing it. It's the fact that they went there, 3,000 of them, knowing, not thinking, not believing, not hoping, knowing they would get treated differently by the cops. Even though they've had no reason to believe that the cops are not just brutalizers.
But the thing is, there'd be so many of us dead.
Right.
There'd be so many of us. It would be.
I'm not saying that Black people should do it, and that's also why I don't think that Black people are going to be the kind of people to ever instigate that kind of violence. Like what we saw on Wednesday, what we've seen in Tulsa, what we've seen in so many other places and so many other contexts in this country of white people instigating violence. They can do that because they don't care about any other white person that may be harmed from what they do, and they also know that none of us care so little about the rest of us to do something, because we know if we do something, if Black people do anything on the similar level as white people, we know Black people across the country in smaller towns are going to be getting fucking worse. We know that. They don't give a shit.
I have nothing left to say. I that's a different perspective.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's the one good thing I can take from this, for our community specifically, is I was watching Late Night with Seth Meyers, and he brought up, I forget exactly where it was, I would have to look it up, but a long time ago in history, there was a multiracial government. There were, I believe it was in Virginia, but I'm not sure. And there were Black and white people governing that particular city, and they were doing so peacefully. And the KKK came and burned it to the ground. That's something that was said on national TV, and he let it be known. but that is not something that they're teaching you in your history books. They have rewritten history. So to say that on such a platform, I am praying that this may change, especially this event is going to change the way we teach history in this country. Not just slavery, like we gloss over it all the time, but the horrors, the repeat of white supremacy, about Rosewood, about Tulsa, about all these other places, about Syracuse. I think that's what it is, Syracuse in New York. All Black people were building their own houses, and they, built over to build a freaking park, took away their homes to build a park. So I want them to teach history the way it actually was. People have the right to know. It's been sugar-coated for so long, and we have not taken white supremacy seriously in this country in my lifetime. So this might be, or at least the government has it. They won't even call it terrorism. And we've known if that's to be the case for a long time. So for the first time to see it actually in my lifetime, to see it being called terrorism by national news organizations on the left and on the right, for it to be this white supremacist temper tantrum, where they literally tried to they absolutely tried to overthrow the government because they're God law.
They came with bombs and zip ties. They were ready to take hostages.
Sure did. Even though it was a failed attempt, it was an attempt nonetheless to overthrow the government. And everybody sees it. It's caught on national TV. People are still at home. Everybody knows this now. Maybe except for them.
I was gonna say they're really good at manipulating stories, and that's exactly why. Exactly why they've been giving us the history they've been giving us. Because even if people have advocated, you need to include Black people in the narrative, you need to include like ethnic histories in the narratives, they'll still find a way to whitewash those identities. I mean, you look at Martin Luther King, you look at Rosa Parks. Both of those are seen as docile, kind-hearted. The like happy magical Negro type of story, but that's not at all who they were. Rosa Parks was definitely a very radical woman in her time frame, and not just like because of the fact of what she did when she decided not to give up her seat, but more so what she was doing outside of that, how she was organizing her community outside of that one instigation of saying no to the system. Martin Luther King became more radical, and that's why they fucking killed him. And even even before he died, he can be quoted saying, "Have I integrated my people into a burning house?" Because there's not a single theorist or organizer or activist who has done it long enough who doesn't come to realize there's no salvaging this system. There's no salvaging, and I'm naming these people, as in these white supremacists. There's no debating, salvaging, turning their narrative, changing their hearts, making a new story for them. Their story has to end for ours to have a new beginning.
Yep. Yes. And it needs to be, and I think the very first step, because keep in mind, this is just the first step, is the actual final acknowledgement of it, okay? To finally call white terrorism what it is. And it has literally been around since the birth of this country. That's what caused—
before 1492.
Right? That's what's caused the Great Migration of Black people being lynched and hung on trees. They were making songs about it if they were allowed to. Billie Holiday, her song called Strange Fruit.
And people are still getting hung, and Black people are still being hung in trees to this day. So it's like,
right? We all saw it this summer. And it was obvious in one of the most liberal states, I think arguably the most liberal state in our whole nation, California. There were 2 lynchings. And what happened? They were labeled as suicides. And I'll note that didn't happen. But to finally start on a worldwide basis, because it just wasn't America that saw this. It was the world that saw that. Because America likes to pretend that there's some sort of example for other countries and how they should run their democracy and all that. And they see, even Turkey was like, so America, girl, we hear y'all are having problems.
the governments are going to say what they want to say, but the people have their own opinions. I know for a fact that there are neo-Nazis and white supremacists in Greece, in Germany, in
Of course.
Italy, throughout Europe, and
Yeah,
and in so
everywhere.
many other countries, and even in Tokyo. Like, I don't know if it's Tokyo, but I know in Japan that they had a pro-Trump rally verifying, like, you're right, he didn't lose. Y'all are lying when you say he didn't win.
Yeah, I
And
heard that.
the danger of that is that it's not about, again, like, Trumpism is one version of something, but at the end of the day, it's white supremacy, it's fascism, and that is goes beyond one culture and one way of being, because it's so embedded in various spaces because of the way whiteness, again, can morph itself. Because even if people from Greece came here and they would be considered an immigrant because of the way that they are culturally different, it doesn't matter. The white supremacists don't have to interact with each other too closely enough to just be like, well, at least we're not them. And still create their own divisions where they're
Of
saying,
course.
we're the white people of our country, and so that's how we're going to be, even if we wouldn't be the white people of your country,
I
because
think
whiteness is a construct and it just morphs as ever however y'all want it to.
that's what happened in Cuba and Florida. That's why they all voted for.
Mm.
That's why a lot of Cubans voted for Trump, which was confusing as all hell. Because in the minds of the white supremacists here, go back to Mexico. Trump is going to build that wall over the sea.
And that's just
Go over
sad,
there,
because that was
Mexicans. They
them.
don't care about Cubans.
That's them saying we don't like communism. And it's like, yeah, you don't like communism because y'all were hoarding wealth and it was taken from your families and redistributed. That's why y'all don't like communism, because again, y'all are what the elite are here. Y'all are wealth hoarders, resource hoarders, and the exact people who, yes, you will get taken from. When shit gets different, you will be taken from. That's the whole point, because you have way more than you need, and other people are literally dying because of what they don't have. Like, I don't know, it's hard. It's not even like it's hard to feel sorry. I don't care to feel sorry. Like, I don't care to be compassionate, because it's a situation where it's like every bit of compassion you give to the other side is an ounce of compassion that I'm not giving to my community. My community needs all the compassion it can get, so they get none.
Well, I think you're drained of it. To have, like, because nobody has compassion for when our people are dying, when when we're being dragged out of cars, when we have an iced tea and Skittles in our hand and our kids are getting shot and killed, and they're asking what were they doing, and you're saying this is an 11-year-old. So it's when people don't have compassion for you and everything that you've been telling them finally comes to fruition, it's kind of it's damn near impossible to be like, oh my gosh, you guys, I'm so sorry. It's like, bitch, we told you so. We told you this was gonna happen. You all waste my time and energy, because you could have completely avoided this had you just been a decent human being. You could have, but you chose not to. You chose not to take action when you should have. You chose to let him shit all over minority communities. And now when it's you, we're supposed to be like, oh,
Marisa, but I don't understand when you say that it's you, and I yeah, I don't understand when you say that it's you, because I don't see any white people being harmed by this. I see white nonsense. I see white nonsense. I see white people showing their ass, and like, I just see it was literally a spectacle for me. So like I see it. I see that it happened, and I see white people saying, oh, that's horrible, and I see them going back to their regular life. I don't see anyone like, oh my God, that's us. They were hurting us. They were hurting, like, Nancy. They like, yeah, I don't see how anyone was harmed by it, but was harmed by it. I see the world finally seeing, like, oh yeah, white people are fucking stupid. Not white people, I don't but the system of whiteness is fucking stupid, and white supremacists are fucking stupid, and Trump supporters are stupid, and all those who are complicit and give him a platform aren't necessarily the smartest people. That's what I saw. I don't necessarily seeing any white person looking at this and going like, oh, we're hurt by this.
Really?
Like,
okay.
I think that white
I
people
see hurt. I see a lot of hurt. I see a lot of disgust.
For what?
I see them covering things the way like news organizations cover it. I feel like they're covering it differently.
I think that everyone wants to be politically correct, and no one wants to be looked at as indifferent or as like I said before, complicit. But in actuality, I see it just being a story that's going to blow over tomorrow, and we're going to continue to like
I
live.
don't think so.
I think
I
that
don't
this system is going to be perpetuated, and like I don't see there be even Joe Biden coming out to say like this isn't our country. Like, what do you mean?
Nobody,
like I know, like
nobody
that's
cares.
what that's what that's and that's I will
What do you
say
mean?
No one gives
no,
a damn what Joe
Chijioke,
Biden has
that's
to say.
important. That's actually really important because what's funny is the idea that these white supremacists put their lives on the line when there was another white supremacist coming into office. They weren't even going to lose ground. Like when I tell you that there is nothing that is any different for me when it comes to Joe Biden being in office versus Trump being in office versus like, okay, cool, he's not going to be instigating insurrections on social media, but is he going to be giving out universal health care? Is he going to be getting rid of student loan debt? Is he going to be doing anything to make sure the wealth gap when it comes to Black families and white families is any better? No. Like as far as I'm concerned, Biden is also a white supremacist. So white supremacists literally battling it out because they want to have the worst, dumbest version of white supremacists in office leading them is actually very, you know what, you're accurate. It's a spectacle. It is the whole thing in itself of just watching white nonsense be played out on the TV screen. And that's exactly why I'm kind of like, look, as far as I'm concerned, every white person needs to go look in a mirror and reflect on their actions because as far as I'm concerned, they were all there. I don't give a shit whether or not they were in support, whether they're disturbed, whether they're scared, whether they feel. They go stand in that corner and reflect on your actions because as far as I'm concerned, all of y'all were there.
I will disagree with you though, right? I think that Joe Biden represents a government figure, like a legitimate government figure, and then with the Senate flipping now to sorry, what am I talking about? With the Senate now flipping to a more democratic majority, I do think that legislation at least will not. I don't think things are going to change overnight and we're going to like live in this whole kumbaya and racism is going to go back and under its ugly rug. No, I don't think that's going to happen, but I do think there is going to be a slight shift in with change. So I don't know. I think Joe Biden, I will say that Joe Biden is better than Trump 100%.
I'm not saying better. I'm not saying he's not. I'm not saying worse or better. I'm saying he's no different. And by saying he's no different, I'm not saying that he is not. He like Trump is overt white supremacy. Biden is covert white supremacy, and that's what I'm saying. Is I think is like we can't let our guard down, saying now everything is fine. White people can say that because again, they don't have to deal with the violence of their own white people getting angry at the system. That's what white people don't have to deal with anymore with Biden in office. But as far as I'm concerned, this country is no safer just because Biden is in office, as far as when it comes to people who are undocumented, when it comes to people who are Black, when it comes to people who are minorities, when it comes to people who are women. Like, and I'm not saying that in the sense of there's no new sensations of safety. There may be no new policies, but Democrats have proven time and time again that even they'll vote down progressive legislation because they're not that different from the Republican Party. My point is more so saying that white supremacy exists in both parties, it exists in the government no matter what. And so therefore, it's shifting powers. It's white people being angry about that is hilarious because it's always going to shift in their favor. No matter what, they're going to be the ones that are on top of being taken care of the most, especially rich white people. So it's like, and I'm naming that because it's not, I think it also is important to name that it's not like poor yokels that people like the caricature of like white racists who live out in the country. That's not who was there on Wednesday. These people had money for weapons, for tactical gear, for plane tickets, for hotels during a pandemic after unemployment has been at the highest it's been in this country in over a decade. So this is not like poor white people who are angry and who are sitting up here getting mad. These are middle class to upper class to rich white people who have the money to burn.
I was saying earlier that there were attorneys out there, there were Senate congressional congressmen out there, there were teachers out there, there were people who were
live streaming the shit. What is wrong with you?
Just
yes. Like
just people that you wouldn't expect. I think I was shocked about that. Like, no, these are educated like people that are out here acting,
which shows you how much our education system is, and I'm going to say this and you can also get upset about it, worthless. Because how are people graduating from all these prestigious universities still racist, still just as ableist, still just as elitist, still just as transphobic, homophobic, and all these other, like, xenophobic, all these other problems in this country. If you're going through the education system that we consider so effective and necessary that it costs $100,000 a year, how are you still graduating and with all these things and it being considered a quality degree? What did you really learn if you're able to leave and be that way?
Don't you think it's where they were educated as well? Like, I feel that, most of the educated areas, like you can go to any sort of college, but are you going to one that you're actually going to learn something from? You can go to the JC down the street and then go to whatever college is close to you. But we can see that some of the areas, like some people, not all, once they do get educated, if they go to, top of my head, Santa Monica College or UCLA or USC, their views start to flip the more educated you are. And if you live in a big metropolitan city, that's why a lot of big cities are usually vote Democratic. But if you never left that bubble, if you were constantly always surrounded by people that thought like you, that ate like you in your own town, and got your education from that area, you might end up like Kelly Loeffler. You never.
I mean, maybe, but I also went to a liberal arts school in Pennsylvania, and people definitely still graduated there just as racist. Like, literally, as a first year, there was an incident of 2 seniors putting up a Confederate flag and laying down a Mason-Dixon line. They were seniors. You had faculty writing letters saying, we apologize for not doing our job, because that's exactly right. They didn't do their job. If someone is able to graduate any institution that they pay any amount of money to go to, and they're supposed to be considered educated when they leave, and they're not educated on how to see other people as human beings, what the fuck was that for? Like, the universities, like, the idea that there's student debt when there's people out here who are considered students who are able to do the atrocities that Stephen Miller, that Holly, that all these other people who have gone to all these other schools have done, like, you didn't teach them the right logic skills. They need to go back to kindergarten and learn to color in the fucking lines.
A lot of people didn't go to, just to play devil's advocate, a lot of people didn't go so they can have a broader understanding. A lot of people go to college is to.
I don't care what you're going to school for. The school is supposed to be giving you something. So if you go to Yale and Harvard and you're a racist when you leave, then Yale and Harvard are racist institutions. They need to, and I'm going to say it, be burned down, and we need to start over again. We need to rethink everything, because that's exactly what it is. White supremacy is in everything, because everything about this country from the first time a white person put a foot on the soil was been about white supremacy, because everything they built up was from this terrible mentality that they matter more than anyone else.
On that note, let's talk about Mia Pasante, or whatever her name.
I'm down. That crazy woman.
Yeah, the crazy lady who accused
attacked a child
of stealing her phone, which is really interesting because
demanded to see it, girl. You know what? Rock has my money. Did you know that, Obi? Rock stole my money. Open your purse, Rock. If there's money in it, it's mine.
When you saw the clip,
if there's money there, it's mine. That's a good one.
When I saw the clip, I thought that it was a white woman, right? And then we come to find out that it's this, like,
that is a white woman. That is a white Puerto Rican woman. Don't know. That is a white woman.
No. But what I'm talking about is just like white supremacy like ingrains and soaks everyone who like, and people
no, but
we never talk about how people of color perpetuate that system, right? So here's this woman who's privileged,
Cuba, Florida voted for Trump,
who looks white and most definitely will enact and promote her whiteness, or not promote her whiteness, but like I said, enact her whiteness because she appears to be white, right? And what are the consequences of that? What are the consequences of that on people of color with dark, because that boy was automatically assumed to have stolen the phone. The manager asked him to open up his phone. Like,
I don't think the manager handled that situation correctly at all. I think maybe he
There is
like
no maybe. There is no
thought,
maybe. There
yeah,
is no maybe.
he
There is
didn't
no
handle it
maybe.
Yeah,
There is
correctly
no.
no maybe. There is no maybe.
because
I've
she
worked
should have been able. There should have been a
there.
question of, hey, can I call the phone? Can I call the phone? And if the phone rings,
I've
like,
worked in customer service. I've worked in hospitality. I've worked at front desk. If someone came up to me
Hmm.
and said that person stole my phone, asked them to open up their phone, I would be like, no, sir, that's private property. Like, why would I get or like I wouldn't go up to that person and say, hey, ma'am, can I see your phone? Like, that's out of my. If anything, he should have called the cops, or he not called the
yeah.
cops. Because you never
No, we
call
did
the
not
cops.
want him to call the police.
We
We
don't
did
want them
not
to call
want him
the
to call the
police,
police.
You should have
but
said, ma'am, that's not my business. And then
right.
walk the fuck away to go handle
Right.
something
Like,
related to the fucking
there's
hotel.
nothing that I could do about the situation, as opposed
Or,
to you inserting yourself and assuming, because once you ask that young child to open up his phone, you have
yeah, you
then
don't ask the child to open up his phone. But what you can do is say, hey, I can dial the number for you. If the phone rings, it's like, but it wouldn't have rung. Okay, if this is your phone, man, then how is he able to access the phone?
Can we talk about where
Does
the
he
phone
have
was
your
found?
password? Does your phone have a password? There was no way the child
this
should have been
phone
able
was
to
found.
access it.
This phone was
No,
found in an Uber.
that's what I'm saying.
Yes,
But that's what I'm
but
saying. Like, can we talk about the fact that she literally lost her phone
in an Uber.
before she ever got to the hotel, and then made a point to realize it in the hotel, and then all of a sudden it became someone in that hotel's immediate vicinity
Right.
fault, and of course it became the black kid's fault
Right,
in her
leaving
mind.
the hotel, and then for her interview, for her to say in an interview like, "Oh, I saw them leaving the hotel." Bitch, when you come to a hotel, are you supposed to stay there? Is this like an entry only facility? Like, what are people supposed to do? Like, you just automatically assume that two black people
It's that
walking out of it,
entitlement,
like,
that absurd entitlement that people should not be leaving the hotel as I'm arriving. That's just insane. Like, that is
anyone owes you
unbelievably
anything, or that
entitled.
that person is a criminal. What
Mm.
made her think that this young small boy was if it was a white kid, do you think that her actions would have been the same?
She would have been
You
like, oh my God,
think
did you
she
find
would have
my phone for me? Thank you so much.
do you think she
Literally
would
would
have
have been her
ran
bitch
after
ass.
him and
I don't
tackled
know,
him?
because do I think it had a lot to do with the child being black? Yes. But do I think this woman is insane? Oh my God, yes. I think this is a crazy
I
woman.
think she's
To
entitled. I
tackle
don't
the
like
boy down to the
I don't think
ground,
that
that's a whole nother level.
I don't think that she's mentally
She would
insane.
have gotten
I
her
think
ass
that
beat if
she's
that was my
entitled.
son.
That's what
She
I'm
would have
saying.
been
If you would have
snatched.
But
pulled
no,
her
I
puppy, I would have slapped the shit
definitely
out
agree
of
with
her.
Chijioke though. Like, I don't think it has to do with mental illness. I think to some extent,
Oh
I
no,
think
I
that
don't
we
think she's
can talk
mentally
about
ill.
but we can talk about how whiteness does. I think that does definitely fuck with your brain in the sense that, like we've been saying consistently, we don't understand how they would logic that out. What is their rationale? Whiteness rationale is completely different than something we will ever understand. And I'm saying that because it is an entitlement not only to the idea of I'm entitled to my phone at all times, I'm entitled to my opinion, I'm entitled to this person who is of service at this
Access to
hotel's
someone
time and
else's
energy.
body.
I'm entitled to having the answers that I want when I want them. It is so many layers and types of entitlement that we would never understand, because of the fact that when we walk in places, I'm still used to taking my hands out of my pockets when I'm walking into stores because I have been followed around before. And so it's like
Yeah.
what even is that? Like, what even?
Can I want to give an example of this because I was just triggered. I just thought of this time I went into Staples, and it was Staples here in New York City. I can't. I want to put the Staples on blast, but like just because I don't remember the exact address, I won't. But I literally walked into the Staples, went to the printing center, and stood there literally for 5 minutes. No one acknowledged me. No one looked my way. Like, I just stood there. And then finally, and there was no one in line. I was the first one there. There was no one in line. They were not busy. People were just walking. The workers were just walking around. Finally, someone came up to me. They took my order, whatever. And then I walked to the side to like wait for my order to be processed. I kid you not, 1 minute after my order was processed, this white guy walked in, came up to the desk. Immediately, someone from the back came up, looked him in the eye and said, "Hey, sir, I'll be right with you." The guy was just like, "Yeah, of course," like, "Yeah, sure." Like, And I just noticed and watched this interaction because the way in which he walked into the space, his whiteness was immediately identified, was immediately affirmed, was immediately acknowledged. And I noticed that's in relation to me being a woman, being a Black woman, and how like I could wait. They didn't have to acknowledge me. Whatever they were doing was more important than my time and more important than what I needed for them to do at the moment. And I think about how often that happens, not only with me, but how that happens with me a lot often. But I can't get mad, because you can't get mad as a Black person in America, because there's always going to be a reason why he was acknowledged before you. Maybe he was this, and maybe he had an appointment and all of that. But all of that to say is that there is something about, I think this week has definitely shown there is something about whiteness that is disgusting, that is prevalent, that really is a skeptical and, like I mentioned before, nonsense that needs, like, we need to nip this in the butt. And I don't want to be involved with that, because I think that anytime people of color try to get involved with that, we are murdered, we are bad things happen to us. I'll just say that. So I'm not sure what needs to be done in order. You see that with, maybe we need to start putting hands on, I don't know. I just said that we don't need to do that, but it's disgusting and I'm tired. And I really just hope that it is a monster that eats itself eventually. But until that moment,
like of white supremacy.
Yeah, that eats itself, that destroys itself, that consumes itself, because I don't know how else this thing will.
I mean, my thing is, if they want to keep on beating up on cops like that, then I'm sure that they're going to be at some point taking some reactionary steps in terms of not, and that's not me saying that I think that cops are going to be siding with people that aren't the fascists. The cops are definitely the fascists, but I feel like there is some extent where, again, police and police unions, they definitely have their very specific, like, I think, ego. Like, they have their own egos that they like to protect. So I don't think that they would ever go around killing fascists, but do I think that they go beating them up because they made them look like little punk bitches on Wednesday? Yeah, maybe. And again, never to the same extent, and never without, again, not coming, it will 100% be coming from a place of ego, not from a sense of like, oh, I disagree with your white supremacy. It's more so just like, you made my brothers in blue look like dumbasses because of the ones that, like Marisa said, they actually did kick some ass in terms of like the fascists kick, like, genuinely doing harm to the people who they supposedly like want to like talk Blue Lives Matter, but only when they want to actually be like, because Black lives don't matter.
Right. I think that I don't know if you had anything else to say, but I wanted to wrap up really quickly. Was there any last comments before we ended?
I just wanted to say real quick, those police officers, even though there were some that were doing their job, but the ones that weren't completely betrayed their brothers. If that's what they call each other, they completely betrayed their comrades. So and once again, I feel like that is a clear message of defund and reconstruct the police. Going back to the crazy woman, I will never remember her name, and I don't feel like I should learn it. The way that this girl is so entitled, because she did an interview with Gayle King, and if you can believe it, had the audacity when Gayle was explaining to her that the little boy did not take your phone, nothing happened, because she was like, I don't understand how that's a crime to accuse someone of stealing something that they didn't steal. So when Gayle started to explain it to her, she said, enough. As far as people like that go, yeah. Oh, it was so disrespectful. Especially to someone that's giving you a platform to make you look more human. The only reason that she said she was Puerto Rican was so people would stop saying, oh, this is a crazy Karen, another white woman. But no, I'm Puerto Rican. I feel like since she said that, like the rest of people that ethnically come from somewhere else, I feel like she's going to be really humbled. She has serious charges of resisting arrest, and I forget the other charge in California, but very serious charges in New York. Grand theft, attempted grand theft is what she has on her record. So I truly believe this woman is going to go to jail. And it's going to be a humbling experience. And I'm going to take that as a sign that no matter what, I'm going to take it as a sign that things are in fact changing. I am.
I hope so.
The elites are being seen for what, some of them are being seen for what they are, and they're boldly telling us who they are and what they're about. We just need to listen to what they're saying and react accordingly. Homegirl, you're going to jail, like for real. And I don't think it's going to be for some little amount of time. I don't think you're going to be out in 2-3 months. I think you might be in there for like 6 months, 7 months. Grand theft is a very serious charge. And it makes me like optimistic. Did we just endure a terrorist attack? Oh my God, yeah. What a great way to start off. What a great way to start off 2021. So not like 2020, right? But yeah, I think I'm more optimistic. We're gonna have a lot more calm in the country. I feel after January 20th. I feel like more people are going to be getting more help in January 20th, financially. People are going to have their healthcare stop being attacked. That makes me happy. And that's what I want to wrap up with.
Well, I hope with you that everything turns out well. Because
I haven't been optimistic in a long time.
I think that we deserve it. I think that the American people deserve it. I damn sure know that like Black people deserve it. Followed by, people of color. We all deserve it. So with that being said, this has been the Rona Report. There's so much that I wanted to say that I feel like we should come back and say. But in essence of time, thank you for watching. Yeah, thank you for watching. My name is Elizabeth Chijioke.
I'm Rock.
And I'm Marisa from Las Vegas.
And we hope you like and subscribe to this video. And if you have any comments or any other thoughts that you want to share or anything that you are interested in seeing us talk about, put it in the comments below. And have a good night.
Mm-hmm. Oh, if this is still recording and if Obi decides to keep this in, we don't care about your Trump opinions if they're directed at us. We don't care. Fuck off. Don't write them in the comments, and have a wonderful day.
Good night.